Hi, I'm Rashonda Cade. Welcome to Reading with Rashonda. We will continue reading Clotel. We just finished chapter 19 where Clotel escaped, and now we are on chapter 20, A True Democrat. Let me adjust my... Okay, there. A True Democrat. Who can with patience for a moment see the medley mass of pride and misery, of whips and charters, manacles and rights, of slaving blacks and democratic whites, and all the piebald policy that reigns in free confusion o'er Columbia's plains, to think that man, thou just and gentle God, should stand before thee with a tyrant's rod, or creatures like himself with souls from thee, yet dared to boast of perfect liberty. By Thomas More. Educated in a free state, and marrying a wife who had been a victim of the institution of slavery, Henry Morton became strongly opposed to the system. His two daughters, at the age of 12 years, were sent to the North to finish their education and to receive that refinement that young ladies cannot obtain in the slave states. So let's go back and remember who Henry Morton is. Henry Morton married Althesa. And so they have two daughters now who at the age of 12 were sent north to finish their education. Although he did not publicly advocate the abolition of slavery, interesting Henry Morton, he often made himself obnoxious to private circles owing to the denunciatory manner in which he condemned the peculiar institution. Being one evening at a party and hearing one of the company talking loudly of the glory and freedom of American institutions, he gave it as his opinion that, unless slavery was speedily abolished, it would be the ruin of the Union. It is not our boast of freedom, said he, that will cause us to be respected abroad. It is not our loud talk in favor of liberty that will cause us to be regarded as friends of human freedom, but our acts will be scrutinized by the people of other countries. We say much against European despotism. Let us look to ourselves. That government is despotic where the rulers govern subjects by their own mere will, by decrees and laws emanating from their uncontrolled will, in the enactment and execution of which the ruled have no voice, and under which they have no right except at the will of the rulers or the number of the subjects. It may have one ruler or many. Rome was a despotism under Nero, so she was under the triumvirate. Athens was a despotism under 30 tyrants. Under her, 400 tyrants. Under her, 3,000 tyrants. It has been generally observed that despotism increases in severity with the number of despots. The responsibility is more divided and the claims more numerous. The triumvirs each demanded his victims. The smaller the number of subjects in proportion to the tyrants, the more cruel the oppression, because the less danger from rebellion. In this government, the free white citizens are the rulers, the sovereigns, as we delight to be called. All others are subjects. They are perhaps some 16 or 17 millions of sovereigns and 4 millions of subjects. That was a lot to unpack, but I thought the point that was made that tyrants are worse when they have fewer people over whom to throw their tyranny. If there's just a few people, they're not going to rise up and fight. And also, if being tyrannical is what you feel in your heart, you're going to be more tyrannical to the people who are up close and personal to you. All right, I'll keep reading. The rulers and the ruled are of all colors, from the clear white of the Caucasian tribes to the swarthy Ethiopian. The former, by courtesy, are all called white, the latter black. In this government, the subject has no rights, social, political, or personal. He has no voice in the laws which govern him. He can hold no property. His very wife and children are not his. His labor is another's. He and all that appertain to him are the absolute property of his rulers. He is governed, bought, sold, punished, executed by laws to which he never gave his assent, and by rulers whom he never chose. So this is, it's talking about despotism and tyranny, absolutely, but it's also picking at representation, taxation without representation, so to speak, like that's a catchphrase. But here it's saying that the people who are the governed, and in this instance he's talking about slaves, are governed, bought, sold, punished, executed by laws to which he never gave his assent, and by rulers whom he never chose. So In a democracy, you have one vote per person. In the US, we're a republic, a democratic republic, but a republic because we elect people, and one vote counts, but we elect people to rule as our representatives, which is what makes it a republic. And I'm not super well versed in that, but I do know that much about a republic. And as a republic, what were we doing? Holding people slaves, governed by laws over which they had no voice, and rulers who they never chose. We're all about, we elect who rules us. That's what makes the US, right? And even if we don't like who we have elected, we have the process to elect somebody else. But slaves don't have that. So that's a lot of the point that was happening here. He is not a serf merely with half the rights of men like the subjects of despotic Russia, but a native slave, stripped of every right which God and nature gave him, and which the high spirit of our revolution declared inalienable, which he himself could not surrender, and which man could not take away from him. Is he not then the subject of despotic sway? The slaves of Athens and Rome were free in comparison. They had some rights, could acquire some property, could choose their own masters and purchase their own freedom, and when free could rise in social and political life. The slaves of America then lie under the most absolute and grinding despotism that the world ever saw. But who are the despots? The rulers of the country, the sovereign people. Not merely the slaveholder who cracks the lash. He is but the instrument of the hands of despotism. That despotism is the government of the slave states and the United States, consisting of all its rulers and all free citizens. Whoa, he said something right here. So he said that the despotism is not merely the government of the slave states, but of the entire United States, consisting of all of the people who have been elected or appointed to rule, as well as all of the free citizens who have the opportunity to elect and appoint people to rule. Who isn't mentioned here at all are women who did not have the right to elect the people who ruled over them. There were some states that, approved women voting before the country did as a whole, but that's really interesting to me. Like, in the Constitution, where it says all men are created equal, by men they meant free right property owners. They didn't mean everybody like we understand it now, and as it should be understood, but that was a really cool move here to me. But I will keep reading. Do not look upon this as a paradox, because you and I and the 16 millions of rulers are free. The rulers of every despotism are free. Nicholas of Russia is free. The Grand Sultan of Turkey is free. The butcher of Austria? I am going to have to look up some history. Like, this book has some things that are unsettling to my 2019 ears. But the butcher of Austria? Augustus, Anthony, and Lepidus were free while they drenched Roman blood. The 30 tyrants, the 400, the 3,000 were free while they bound their countrymen in chains. You and I and the 16 millions are free while we fasten iron chains and rivet manacles on 4 millions of our fellow men, tear their wives and children from them, separate them, sell them, and doom them to perpetual eternal bondage. Are we not then despots? Despots such as history will brand and God abhor. We as individuals are fast losing our reputation for honest dealing. Our nation is losing its character. The loss of a firm national character, or the degradation of a nation's honor, is the inevitable prelude to her destruction. Whew. Now, while this was written, what do we say, 1853? While this was written in 1853, I'm going to read this again because it could have been written in 2019. We as individuals are fast losing our reputation for honest dealing. Our nation is losing its character. The loss of a firm national character, or the degradation of a nation's honor, is the inevitable prelude to her destruction. I just needed that to sit there for a moment. Behold the once proud fabric of a Roman empire, an empire carrying its arts and arms into every part of the eastern continent. The monarchs of the mighty kingdoms dragged the wheels of her triumphal chariots, her eagle waving over the ruins of desolated countries. Where is her splendor, her wealth, her power, her glory? Extinguished forever. Her moldering temples, the mourning vestiges of her former grandeur, afford a shelter to her muttering monks. Where are her statesmen, her sages, her philosophers, her orators, generals? Go to their solitary tombs and inquire. She lost her national character, and her destruction followed. Wow. The ramparts of her national pride were broken down, and vandalism desolated her classic fields. Then let the people of our country take warning ere it is too late. Let me read that again. Then let the people of our country take warning ere it is too late. Let us take warning from Rome. Let us take warning from William Wells Brown in 1853. Let us take warning before it is too late. But most of us say to ourselves, who questions the right of mankind to be free? Yet what are the rights of the Negro to me? I'm well fed and clothed. I have plenty of pelf. I'll care for my blacks when I turn black myself. Who? And don't we say that? I'll care about those immigrants, the homeless, the uninsured, the underinsured, the hungry, the mentally ill, whoever, the strung out on drugs, whoever the population is. That's what we say. I'll care about them when it touches me. But by the time it touches you, it's too late, and you need somebody to care about you. All right, I feel like I'm done moralizing. Let me get back to the book. Although the book is doing plenty of moralizing, and it's really hard to imagine one person who's out at a dinner giving like this 4-page speech, but hey, that's how we were rolling in 1853 with William Wells Brown, and we will continue to roll. New Orleans is doubtless the most immoral... Ouch. Ow, this hurts. New Orleans is doubtless the most immoral place in the United States. The theaters are open on the Sabbath. Bullfights, horse racing, and other cruel amusements are carried on in this city to an extent unknown in any other part of the Union. The most stringent laws have been passed in that city against Negroes, yet a few years since, the state legislature passed a special act to enable a white man to marry a colored woman on account of her being possessed of a large fortune, and very recently the following paragraph appeared in the city papers. There has been quite a stir recently in this city in consequence of a marriage of a white man named Buddington, a teller in the Canal Bank, to the Negro daughter of one of the wealthiest merchants. Buddington, before he could be married, was obliged to swear that he had no Negro blood in his veins, and to do this he made an incision in his arm and put some of her blood in the cut. The ceremony was performed by a Catholic clergyman, and the bridegroom has received with his wife a fortune of $50,000 or $60,000. It seems that the $50,000 or $60,000 entirely covered the Negro woman's black sin, and the law prohibiting marriage between blacks and whites was laid aside for the occasion. Oh my gosh. Okay, so clearly I was tickled by saying New Orleans is doubtless the most immoral place in the United States. I figure we've got all kinds of immoral places. There's a race for it. I don't know that New Orleans wins, and I don't know that New Orleans would have won in 1853. But when you have a wealthy white man who wants to marry a black woman, we are really getting back to the whole plissage relationship that we talked about previously. This woman, it doesn't say it here, but this woman is probably the offspring of several generations of plissage relationships, and she had a fortune. And so a white man was like, let me marry her and gain her fortune, and it all was fine because she had enough money. And do we not still do that today? I don't like X, Y, and Z things, but if they're going to throw enough money at me, they're going to be fine by me, which means they were fine by you already. You just needed some financing to show in public what you already agreed with in private. All right, so it seems that the $50,000 or $60,000 entirely covered the Negro woman's black skin, and the law prohibiting marriage between blacks and whites was laid aside for the occasion. Althesa felt proud, as well she might, at her husband's taking such high ground in a slave-holding city like New Orleans. Yeah, and I'm sure she did feel proud of him because he was eschewing slavery, but did he set her free? Not that we read in the book. That means his daughters were also his slaves. Did he set them free? Not that we've read. Yes, he sent them to the north to get a good education. Did he send them to the north as white women? Probably. They probably looked like white women. If Althesa already looked like a white woman, they probably really looked like white women. And so now he's passing his daughters off as free white women when really what they are enslaved black women. Like, it's crazy, but it goes to show that race is malleable, and it doesn't mean all of the things that we think it means. And through Clotel, we're also learning that our perceptions of gender are also malleable. So that's it for today. That was chapter 20. Thanks for hanging with me, and I'll see you next time on Reading with Rashonda.